I'm Macon. Yes, that rhymes with bacon. I'm a Scotch whisky historian, and I wrote my PhD thesis on the history of Scotch whisky and advertisements. I spent a lot of time, years in fact, researching the Scotch whisky industry, and I've been kind of stuck in that, and I've managed to collect lots of little tiny bits of whiskey bottles, but I've been putting off drinking them because I was like, oh well, you know, I'll start a whiskey channel on YouTube and save it for that sort of kind of thing. But the funny thing about life and doing a PhD especially, you just never seem to find the time, or you're always waiting for something better. I was always waiting for the right time. Wanted to look cute on the internet. I don't think I look cute on the internet right now. Messy bun, no makeup, no influencer nail polish on my fingers, whatever. The thing is I just really want to drink my whiskey, so I figured let's dive right into it. I hope that eventually I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about maybe the history of the different whiskeys I've collected, maybe stories about the distilleries, the history I've learned, or just experiences traveling around Scotland for the last few years. But for now I just went and kind of raided my cache of miniatures and came up with 3 bottles to grab that I thought would kind of ease into whiskey tasting, especially since it's been a while since I've had any really properly to drink. I decided to go with Glenfarclas. So this is a 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. I also think I will kind of speak to you with an assumption that you maybe have a casual knowledge of Scotch whiskey. You probably know more than me, maybe. I am much more on the history side of things and the kind of imagery to sell Scotch whiskey, and not so much knowledgeable about the specific blends of like popular blends that have been made, or all the different single malts that come from distilleries, or the different kind of expressions that those distilleries put out. The industry is massive, and there's a lot of inventory of Scotch whiskey of a variety of ages, and so that gets kind of put around as different companies either sell their brands, or they sell their inventory to different companies. So that creates quite a complicated web of whiskeys, but it means there's lots to try then. For instance, I'm recording this at the time that was just announced that Edgerton has sold the famous Grouse, which is one of the kind of historic Perth blends of Scotch whisky that has survived through the 20th century, and now has been sold by one of the bigger multinational enterprises, but one that is run by a charitable organization, the Robertson Trust, so they don't have the same sort of shareholder demands that some other companies of the big whiskey companies do. But it's a tricky time, I think, especially being a historian. I tend to think that there's a financial crisis or a supply of whiskey crisis around the corner, so I'm interested specifically in really trying to get more people drinking whiskey, especially women. We drink whiskey and we like whiskey, so you know, there's a space for that, and I look forward hopefully to meeting more women who do drink whiskey in the kind of field around about. So a little bit of rambling. So back to the whiskey. So I've got this 12-year-old Glenfarclas that I got on a distillery tour a few years ago. I've got a pal that works for the distillery and suggested I go. Had a great time. It's one of the favorite distillery tours I've done. Keeping the kind of theme of that Highland, a little bit Speyside, but more Highland region for whiskies. I've got the Glen. So this is the Founder's Reserve. It doesn't have an age statement on it, which just means that they're keeping secret how old the whiskey is. When you put an age statement on it, like the 12, that means the absolute youngest whiskey that can be in this bottle is 12 years. Sometimes it means it's older, sometimes it'll all be 12, sometimes it'll be a mix that have been vatted together. But I don't really know too much about the Glengarry, and yes, that's how it's pronounced. I googled it, but also when I worked at a distillery, that is how everyone was pronouncing it. But that's not a hard and fast rule, just because I found that just because you think something is pronounced a certain way, usually the people that live there will pronounce it a completely different one. And that's how you tell that people are not from there. Also grabbed a Macallan, and this is the Macallan 10. I don't really know a whole lot about Macallan, except they are owned by the previously mentioned Edgerton. They also have a gigantic distillery up in Speyside that is just like a spaceship. It's incredible what they've done. I've never actually managed to take a tour of it. That's one of those ones that books up pretty far in advance, and I haven't really had the time to plan for trips that far in advance, so maybe one day. But it's supposed to be one of those ones that is really popular abroad, especially in the US. It's also usually quite pricey and kind of a representation of prestige, as the way to think about it. I think all of these whiskeys will be interesting, and I'm gonna dive into tasting them. So when I taste whiskey, I'm gonna smell it, I'm gonna kind of look at it and try to get a sense of what I'm smelling before I taste it. And I'll make a few notes in my notebook. Then I'll have a little sip of it and then try to see what happens as I compare. The thing about tasting whiskey, I think, is that everybody's gonna have different taste buds and you'll have different experiences, and even tasting whiskey is gonna be different on the day. So for instance, I've been making chili for dinner tonight, so my house kind of smells a bit like the spices that I use for my chili. Even though I've washed my hands, I was chopping onions earlier, and so there's a lot of like senses have been really kind of touched on by making dinner. So that will impact what I am tasting today and smelling even. I also think that different experiences, so if you've never tasted the things that I've tasted, you're going to pick up on different things when you have a whiskey. Typically, I tend to really like Speyside whiskeys. I like a very kind of caramely vanilla notes, some fruit notes. I love to drink all kinds of whiskey, so I'll have everything, but I tend to stay away from some of the peatier, kind of medicinally whiskeys as a point of preference just for drinking. But I love to try everything, frankly, so always open to that, and that's why I've got a pretty good collection of miniatures, because I'm fascinated by that. So sometimes too, I think with ages of whiskey, especially with setting up kind of a tasting, I would maybe decide kind of a range to do. So maybe start at something that's a little lighter on the palate, and then it sort of warms you up, because when you first taste a whiskey for that day, it's going to be punchy. It's alcohol. It's oftentimes going to have a very high alcohol content, so it will be a little bit punchy. But we'll see what happens. And just to preface, really, what I'm tasting, smelling, and enjoying is going to be completely different than what you might enjoy or might smell. I haven't looked at any of the sort of tasting notes that you sometimes see with these, just because I think it would kind of bias me a little bit as to what I'm as to what I'm experiencing while I'm having these whiskeys. So let's crack on. Alright, so that's my first one. And then I'm gonna have the Glen Garioch. And that's that Founder's Reserve. Just says a little bit on it. It does mention a little bit about the flavors that you can expect, so things like honey, hints of heather, and a touch of spice. I don't know if I know what heather tastes like and if I believe that, but we'll see how that works out. And you'll notice I'm not pouring the entire bottle either. Oh, that was quite a heavier pour than the Glenfarclas, but anyways, just because I haven't had anything to really drink in a while, so I'm gonna take it a little bit easy on myself. But I also think too, once I've opened these, there's gonna be air that has gotten in, and I think it might be interesting to give them a try a little later. There's that Macallan 10. Alright, so I've got my little bit of water here just to kind of cleanse my palate since I have been cooking dinner. I also went out for a pumpkin spice latte earlier, so sorry, that's just me. Pretty basic American. What can I say? Judge me as harshly as you like, because I'm still gonna drink them. I guess that goes with my whiskey taste as well. Love it or leave it, I guess. Alright, so the first thing I'm noticing about these is the color. So it's kind of interesting. They're all pretty similar, kind of that honey color, except I will say that the Macallan 10 is quite a bit darker. Now, I don't want to get hung up on color too much because I don't know whether these companies are using any caramel coloring or what kind of casks they're using. I haven't done that bit of research. I did notice on the Macallan, I think it does say it uses Oloroso sherry casks, so that would I would be led to believe encourage some coloring to the whiskey. That might be different from the others if they're maybe aged in a bourbon cask. So I don't really know, and of course that'll impact the flavor as well. But again, I think color is one of those things, it's kind of like wonky fruit, where we tend to think of it as a real big kind of teller if something's going to be good or if we'll like it, but it maybe is just a bit of just our brains being programmed to think something's better than something else. So, alright, so let's start off with the Glenfarclas. So, and some of you professional whiskey tasters will have lots to say about how to do things. Again, I'm more of a history person, so I can tell you all about, like, what can I tell you about? I can tell you about the history of different companies, the 19th century with the industry, how the industry's changed in the 20th century, things like exports, and like what happened during World War II with the kind of dollar for exports for whiskey. How that was needed for the war effort, and so all kinds of things like that. But again, I'm not that knowledgeable about different kinds of whiskey other than kind of the basics, regions and different distilleries and things like that. So that's kind of what I know, but that's why I'm doing this, because I want to know more and I just want to drink my whiskey. So here we go. And let's see if I remember any good old whiskey tasting kind of smells that you can get. Mostly it smells like alcohol to me. Got that one the wrong way. Smelled that a little too deeply. But there is something coming through on that. Let's see. The joke that we used to say whenever we would smell whiskey at the whiskey tastings I did at Glasgow Uni, it was apples. Apples is always the first thing I would smell. And yeah, I would say crisp apple. Let's see if I write that down for every one of them. But I do think as I warm up to this and get more familiar and get back into the habit of tasting whiskey, I'll get a little bit more sophisticated, maybe. Plus I think even just between the ones I'm having tonight, going between them after I've tried them, that'll make a difference as well. That is very smooth. Oh yeah, I like that one. I think, I don't think I'm gonna have some sophisticated rating. I think it's gonna be, do I like that? Yes I do. Will I drink that again? Probably. So, I definitely think I get a little bit of that sort of caramelly, treacly, sort of sweet, syrupy kind of flavor from it. Okay, so I'm gonna take a sip of my water to kind of cleanse my palate a little bit. My throat is feeling a little fiery. That's probably good because I think I've been getting a little bit of cold, change of the seasons, so hopefully this whiskey will help me through that. Okay. Let's see what the Glengarioch has for me. Well, it's a good sign it smells different. But what does it smell like? Yeah, that's very different. Yeah, on the first kind of smell of that Glenfarclas, I could definitely say like punchy apple, but this one is a little bit different. It's not quite like that crisp apple smell. Maybe a little bit more grainy, kind of like barley, but not in the way that I would say like a grain whiskey would smell. Is grassy a word? I don't know if I would say it's grassy, but sort of like oats maybe. Let's see what it tastes like. Ooh. Oh yeah, that's very different. Yeah, I guess I would say maybe the flavor on the tongue is that sort of kind of grainy, like it's almost like you can taste the barley. And then I think it's woody. I wouldn't say it's smoky. Think of it as like smoky comes from that kind of typically from peat that's used in the malting process, and so that sticks through. This I think is more from the cask, so like a woody kind of flavor from the cask. Maybe it does have a bit of peat influence. Again, I don't know. I didn't look up these distilleries before I did this, and it's the first time I've had a Glengarioch that I know of. So it's entirely possible that they do use peat in the process of malting their barley. It does have that kind of medicinal quality that you get like with a Laphroaig. I guess this would, to me, this is what I would expect like a traditional whiskey to taste like. Yeah, I don't know if I like it though. It's different, and it's nice to like see the contrast. I'll have to see how I feel when I come back to that. I would definitely say so far I prefer the Glenfarclas. Definitely would drink again. Alright, so the Macallan. So I actually don't know if I've had a Macallan before. I tend to have a bit of a preconceived notion of what Macallan is, and it typically is reserved for someone who has probably a second home and plays a lot of golf. Yeah, I have a lot of student loan debt, so I do not have a second house. Don't even own my first house, but you know, alas. Maybe that's me being a snob, but that's kind of what I think of Macallan. Doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean those people are wrong for liking Macallan either. I just haven't really put an effort into trying it, so that's my fault, isn't it? Maybe it's good for a reason or popular for a reason. Alright, slight change in format. Really get to see my face in HD. So, rookie mistake, something's wrong with my camera and it has decided not to record anymore. just as I was about to taste the Macallan 10. So, bottoms up. Ooh, that smells much pepperier than it did earlier. So peppery. What else do we get? I would even go as far to say there's a little bit of a sweet tone to it. Don't want to say that it smells like nail polish remover or varnish, but it kind of does to me. But that is just me figuring things out, I guess. Okay, let's try it. Ooh, oh yeah, immediately pineapple. That's absolutely what I taste. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely pineapple. It does burn a little bit more than the others have, but I would still say it's quite smooth going down. Like sometimes you taste whiskeys and it really just kind of almost takes your breath away as how kind of fiery that alcohol content is in that. Yeah, I'm surprised. I think I kind of like that. Oopsie. All right. I mean, that's why we try whiskeys, right? Good surprise. Although I'm not crazy about pineapple flavor, but I like that a lot more than I thought I was going to. Hey ho, maybe that's why they're so popular, for a reason. All right, that was a gross sound. I wonder how much the camera picked that up. Yeah, that's the surprising one for me, I think so. All right, let's see if I can taste something else and what it now tastes like because I've had all three of these whiskeys. So I'm gonna take a sip of my water first. Oh yeah. So now that I've had these whiskeys, this smells much more buttery to me. Almost like butter popcorn. That's fascinating. Okay, so that was fascinating. The Glenfarclas smells like butter popcorn now. The Americans know what I'm talking about because our movie theater popcorn is elite. And they don't do that here in the UK for some reason. But shame. Alright, this is the Glen. Let's see what it smells like now. I don't know that it really smells any different than it did before. Not like a bad thing. It's just kind of very soft in what it does smell like. Yeah, I definitely would say it's got something. It's gotta have peat in it, right? Like, is that what I'm tasting? I guess put that in the comments is how the YouTubers do it. Tell me what I'm missing here. All right, let's try this Macallan again. What does that smell like now? I would say they definitely taste, or they smell a little bit softer. Maybe a little bit more like a caramely smell. Maybe vanilla. Maybe that's what I'm smelling. Like vanilla extract when you put it in when you're baking and stuff like that. Yeah, it's still got that like pineapple flavor to it, but I'd say a little bit more vanilla has come forward now that I've had it again. Pretty interesting. Okay, here's my final thoughts, because I need to go make mac and cheese for dinner before my husband gets home from work. And he'll be like, what have you been doing with all the whiskey? And, you know, I'll be very cheerful, like, hello. So that's nice, I guess, for him maybe to come home to a already a little tipsy wife. Well, anyways, at least dinner will be ready, right? So, final thoughts. Still love Glenfarclas. I already knew that, though. That's a great whiskey. That 12, just chef's kiss. Perfect. Exactly what I like about whiskey. So no surprises there for me. The Glengarioch, I haven't, like I said, I haven't had it before. Yeah, it tastes like whiskey to me. Like, I think it's probably representative of, like, what whiskey, Scotch whiskey is, especially, or what people think Scotch whiskey is. Yeah, so not offensive to me at all. I don't know if I would drink it again. Not as something as where I'm like buying a full bottle and like, this is my jam. But yeah, I would try it again, totally. And then the Macallan, oh, that's so funny. I had a nice little sort of monologue about how I am judgy about Macallan and Macallan drinkers. Well, I guess I have to eat my feet, or whatever the saying is. Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. Yeah, I thought it was kind of peppery and sweet, and looking at my notes here. So pineapple, smooth, surprising. Later, a little bit of caramel and vanilla. So yeah, there you go. Macallan 10. Not so bad. It kind of made me think that it was a bit like a pina colada, but a whiskey, which doesn't really make sense. So we'll just say, oh yeah, my cheeks are nice and rosy now too. So that's what happens when you have 3 gems. A little flush there. But yeah, I think that just about does it. Will I make another one of these? I don't know. I hope so. Will anyone watch them? I guess we'll find out. I hope you did enjoy it, and I hope you'll stick around to see what else I do. I'm hoping to be doing more tastings, get out to actually see some more distilleries. It's kind of shameful how few I have been, mostly because of writing a PhD is very time consuming, and a student budget does not leave very much for going out and exploring. So that's why mostly I've been picking up little miniatures like these, because they are cheaper than buying an entire bottle of whiskey, and it lets me try more things. So that's it for now. Thanks if you have managed to watch this far, for sticking around. This is this is my channel, A Little Bit Whiskey, and I will hopefully catch you next time. And if you actually like this and want to subscribe, please help me by, you know, doing those things. Click the like button. Please subscribe, and I will be posting more on Instagram maybe. I hope to do that more, and I'm hoping to be writing more about my research that I did for my thesis in my Substack. So links for that, all kind of stuff, will be in the description. Wow, I sound like a YouTuber now. So there we go. Cheers and Slanjoa for being here with me, and yeah, that's all for now, folks. Oh god, that's too cliched. Gonna edit that out. Thanks for being here. I'm Macon, and I'm gonna sign off now. Bye.